Hey, welcome back to the channel. Anybody know how to fix gravestones? Or are we all just faking it? That's what I thought.
That was dumb. That was dumb. Every tool's a hammer, unless it's a screwdriver, then it's a chisel.
We need a torch. Hate that nut.
We're not doing that. Because it ain't built till it's overbuilt. Every day's a school day.
Hey, welcome back, guys. If you follow the channel, you may have seen the video where my buddy Dave and my wife and his wife and I drove to New Hampshire and committed, I don't know, Class B felony, maybe? Anyways, stole a gravestone. It's not really stealing, okay? Settle, you in the back. Settle down, all right? If you're a direct descendant, you can pretty much do what you want with the stone. What I did was I went and got the stone of my 5 greats grandmother, which had been laying on the ground, mostly buried for a long time. I would encourage you to just go back and watch that video. But we went and we got the stone. I've bought some supplies. I've watched enough videos and researched enough. I think I know how to fix this. But it's a pile of pretty small pieces. So I'm losing confidence. I'm scared, a little bit scared. If any of you know, feel free to put some comments if you see me doing things wrong or whatever. It would be much appreciated. My goal is to get this thing fixed, get it back. It's like 3 hours away. I'm hoping I can get it fixed and get it back to New Hampshire before the frost, but here it is October. Frost is coming. So if I don't, it's really not a huge deal. I marked the grave with a wooden stake that had all the info on it, and it could wait till spring if it has to. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. First and foremost, I don't want it to fall apart again. Stone is 235 years old. No pressure or anything. It's a marble tablet. Comes right down to is the stone itself appears that it had flaws. You know, it had seams running through it, and it just didn't hold up, didn't stand the test of time. If you watch the old video, you'll see that I showed you, I think I showed you on that video, where it had been fixed before by drilling and bolting, and that never works. They know that now. Back then they wanted to try it, you know, because it seemed like the right thing to do, and they didn't have the technology of adhesives like we do nowadays, epoxy. So I've bought the supplies that I need. The first thing I'm going to have to do here is I've got to build a flat platform to work on, because this piece of plywood that I've had it sitting on has kind of got a bow to it, and the pieces don't sit right, you know. So I'm going to build a little backbone for it so that it forces it to be nice and flat. And then I'm just going to dig in here. I think I might put a leg on it or something so it stands up almost straight, so that gravity is kind of holding the glue joints together. And I'll get that thing made and then try to shop. This is my shop in the basement at the house. It's kind of little, so I gotta probably do a little cleaning or something and try to make room for this project. But I got a rainy weekend ahead of me, and I'm really hoping that maybe by the end of the weekend I can at least have it glued back together. Once it's glued, I have to go through and infill all the... When these lay in the ground, they kind of erode. There's acids in the ground and things, and they sort of round the edges over, and it actually takes stone away after time. It's been in the ground a long time, laying down in the ground broken for a long time. So I'm going to have to replace that missing stone, you know, because 2 reasons. One, it would look bad. You don't want it to have all these really obvious cracks. But the most important thing is the water can get in there, and it could leach its way into any voids that might be in the epoxy, and then when it freezes, the water will jack the thing and break it, either re-break it or most likely put a fresh break on it right next to the old break. So you really kind of want to make sure you've got these things sealed up pretty well. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna dig into kind of jerry rigging this thing so it's flat and sturdy, give it some frame, you know, some structure, and then we'll get right into seeing if we know what we're doing or not. Would have been nice if I found a stone to fix that had one break for the first one. No, that's not how we roll. We dive in. No, not smart. There, so I got a thing, perfectly good thing. Anyways, I think it'll work. Here, let me show you what it is. So that's kind of looks like a stretcher, but all it is it's to give that plywood a little backbone, because it's whatever, 1/2 inch plywood, and it had quite a bow to it. So if I tried to build the stone on it, all the joints would be, crooked. So now it's pretty flat. I put a straight edge on it, and it looks really good both directions. The boards I used were nice and straight, so it's got to be better. And I think I want to do it just like it is there. I shoved this board under to kind of hold the lip up, and I made that lip on the bottom. That'll hold the stone. Essentially, that'll hold the weight of the stone. In this way, the gravity will be holding the joints together, pulling down on them. And then you're going to see after the next step here that they fit together pretty nice. And once I get some of it glued, I can throw some clamps on to kind of just hold it, make sure it doesn't come, crashing down. But it really should stay there. It's leaned back enough that I think it'll just sit there pretty decent and should hold the joints together good while the epoxy dries. This is what I'm going to be using. It's Acupox 5010. And then when I go to do the infill, I got fine and coarse marble sand, and I'll mix that together because I think that'll match the surface of the stone. It's kind of coarse. I didn't want to do it all with real fine sand. I'll mix that together with some epoxy, and I'll use that to infill the missing materials when I'm done. I bought all this from Atlas Preservation. That's the place to go. If you have actually any kind of stonework, even if it's not graves, it could be stone posts or anything that you want to repair that's any sort of stone. They've got any kind of epoxies and anything that you might need. They have dyes. You can change the color of it if you want to try to match a color. I'm kind of lucky here because it's white marble and they have white marble sand, so I don't really have to worry too much about that. It isn't going to match perfectly, but I think I'm going to be okay with that. It's going to be a whole lot better than it was. So I'm going to get started now. I'm just going to go through these joints, make sure there's nothing on here like old mortar from old repairs and things. I know there's some right there. And I'm just going to chip that off very carefully and get these pieces all cleaned up. And I will dry fit them one more time. I've already done it, but I'm going to dry fit them on here standing up. Make sure this thing seems like it's going to work okay. And then once I'm ready, hopefully we can move right along and get all these pieces at least back in one piece. And then I can worry about this infill after that. So I don't know if it showed good on the time lapse or not, but that piece had quite a bit of old hard mortar on one spot. It was on the face of it. It was just kind of leftovers from a repair job somebody did at some point. Which, I mean, I guess now we know that that's not a good way to do it. It was with mortar, but at the time it was all they had. So certainly they didn't do anything wrong by trying to fix it. And here you can see along this edge where there's, see that different color? That's mortar. That's not stone. And this one I got to get this all off because it could be messing up the joint, you know, where this piece mates the other piece. So I'm gonna very carefully chip away at this and get that mortar off. Another thing you don't want to do is, even if it doesn't interrupt the joint, is if I epoxy this to the other piece and then this joint fails, you know, the epoxy would hold still, but this joint could come off the marble over here, which would allow water to get in, which would allow this thing to break again. So I just want to make sure I've got this all clean and the joints are all stone to stone, you know, and nothing interfering with them. So I'll just chip away very, very carefully here. I don't want to do any more damage to the marble than is already done, but I do want to get this off. There, it's all cleaned up. One thing you might have noticed is that I'm using a wire brush. Like, one thing about the wire brush, you only want to use a wire brush when you're cleaning a broken joint, you don't want to use it to clean the stone, like the face of the stone, maintenance type cleaning. It's not for that. A wire brush is pretty aggressive. It rounds off a lot of the stone as you go. And if you do it one time and stone looks nice and you think, well, it's fine, but if it gets cleaned that way for 235 years, you won't even be able to read the stone. You got to think really long term when you're thinking about something like a gravestone. They pretty much are forever. So don't use a wire brush to clean your stone. But I can do it in this case because it's I need to get the edge really clean before I glue it, because I can't have any thing in there that will come off, because the glue will be stuck to the speck of dirt, and if the speck of dirt comes unattached from the marble on the other side, now you've got a void where water can get in. So that's the story. Okay, so now I've got a good foundation to work on. I've got all these pieces cleaned. Any old mortar repairs have been chipped off. Now we're ready to take it back apart. We'll start at the bottom, and we'll start mixing some epoxy up and putting these pieces together for keeps. You'll notice the stone is dirty. When I brought it home, I gave it a quick rinse and brush off just to get the big dirt off, but I don't want to clean it yet, and here's why. By the time I'm done, there's liable to be some epoxy that gets on the faces, It's not going to come out perfect. It's going to have a little bit of spillover on the face, and I'm hopeful that maybe by leaving that stuff on there, when I'm all done, I'm going to give this thing a really good deep scrub. What I'm hopeful is that by doing that, I can clean that layer maybe that's under some of that epoxy, and the epoxy will come off with it. So that's why I'm leaving it kind of scuzzy for now. But that's it. There's two pieces. There's a piece here, this corner, and there's a piece up here that I could not find in the cemetery. When I take the stone back, I will bring my stuff with me, and if in the process of resetting the stone I find one or both of those pieces, I'll do it in the cemetery, with it in place. But I'm not optimistic because I looked pretty close for them and couldn't find them. But I will be digging a little bit more. So there's a chance.
Hey, welcome back. It's the next morning. My wife hollered down there was pizza and cold, frothy adult beverages, and I was gone. I took a minute to watch some of that video, and I got to apologize. In the time lapses, I have this light thing going on. I don't know. These are LED lights. something doesn't like. The camera and the light don't get along. Anyways, I came down this morning, did a little cleaning up. By cleaning up, I mean I took a lot of this stuff and I shoved it back where you can't see it. So to me, it looks a lot worse, but to you, it looks a little better. We're ready here. The stone is all ready to disassemble. Hopefully the last time. I'm going to mix up some epoxy and I'm going to start gluing pieces together. Yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. My wife reminded me this morning that I really need to hurry, get this done, because I'd kind of forgotten the fella who runs the cemetery called me a while ago. He wasn't happy, and he kind of threatened that if he didn't have it back by winter, he'd send the law. Like I said, I really don't think it's illegal. But, you know, I don't like to make people too mad, and I do. Obviously, it needs to get back where it belongs. So I'll try to hurry, I guess. It's always best to rush when you have no idea what you're doing on something you never did before that needs to last for another 234 years. Yeah. Alright, I guess no sense messing around. I'm going to casually sip my coffee while I stare at this for a while and screw up the courage to start putting glue on it. Wish me luck. Got reminded of a funny story as I was thinking about my impending run-in with the law. The cemetery where this was from was in a place called Chester, New Hampshire, which is a really little town, but apparently has its own police force. Found that out the hard way. They also have a really weird intersection. It's one of them that's like a blinky light and a stop sign, and nobody really seems to know. I don't know, it's like on a hill and a curve, and the sight lines are weird. And okay, so I'm making excuses, because when I came into town, I just ran right through that thing, right in front of him. He was sitting right there. I saw him just as I had proceeded to cross the line. Pulled me over quickly, and by chance, it's right by the cemetery. So I actually had pulled off to the cemetery, which is where I was going anyways. Explained what I was doing, there to steal a gravestone. Didn't seem to bother him. Anyways, my buddy Dave was with me. He said, of course, first thing Dave said is, get your camera. Probably should have, but I didn't want to be that guy, you know, because that'll probably land you a handful of tickets for sure. So I had a nice visit with local law enforcement, and he let me go. Which won a bet, because Dave said, you're coming out of here with a handful of tickets. So that was nice. Anyway, yeah, you know, I'm already practically buddies with the local law enforcement. I think we're going to be fine. I think, yeah. Made a lot of friends up there in Chester, New Hampshire. That guy was, he was pretty unhappy with me. I think I ended up getting on the phone with him. We had a long phone call. Started out he was pretty mad, which I kind of understand, because he didn't know I was... Okay, let me back up. Let me back the story up, okay? Facebook, I love and I hate, right? So, on Facebook, I found this page called Old New Hampshire Cemeteries, or something like that. So I go on there and I said, hey, I got this relative that's in the Chester, New Hampshire cemetery, and I'd like to fix the stone. Does anybody know the legal, you know, whatever? Well, some guy came on. I guess I assumed he was the guy from that cemetery. anyways, he told me that the way the law works and that it would be fine if I just take the stone, since it was all broke to pieces, bring it home, fix it, and then bring it back, put it back up. But the guy that I was Facebook messaging with, he wasn't the guy from the Chester Cemetery. He was a different guy. The guy from the Chester Cemetery apparently was not involved in that conversation. Wasn't happy. Anyways, we had a nice long visit, and I think everything's okay. When I go to return the stone, there's a chance they're gonna put me in jail. I guess I can't guarantee that doesn't happen. So, look if this video is done and you guys don't hear from me for a while, Chester, New Hampshire, that's the place I need you to start just sending bail money. To New York, we don't have cash bail. We just let the bad guys go. But in New Hampshire, they still lock you up. To live free or die state. They put you in prison till you die. Alright, anyways, back to work. Okay, alright. It's time to stop being a sissy and just, start mixing up epoxy and gluing things together. Probably, most likely, my fingers. Whew. Wow, that can's like, I guess, childproof. It's great. Noticed? This epoxy is, I guess, is made in Germany. And the directions on the can. I don't have the right kind of glasses for that. Epoxy hard Liebler. Alright. Anyways, it's a 2-part epoxy. And it is 2-to-1, and that's why they make the one can twice as big as the other can. So it's okay. It's pretty simple. And this, it's 2-part epoxy, so it can't harden until it's mixed. So as long as I don't get any of this into here or any of this into here, these 2 cans should pretty much last forever. I'm going to use a trick I learned online from the guy who runs Atlas Preservation, and use spoons to mix it with. So basically you take 2 spoons of one and 1 spoon of the other, and mix them up, and you're ready to go. And then you just throw your spoons and all that crap away when you're done. So that's kind of cool. It's a clever idea. I need to stop talking and just start doing, but I gotta tell you, I'm feeling a little intimidated. I'm gonna do it though. We're gonna go with this. I think probably it's a good idea to put these on, because at one time I used the crazy glue and took a while to get my forefinger unstuck from my forehead. I don't want to do that again. So yeah, it's just spoons full, but you also got to think they need to be the same full, right? There's heaping full, there's level full, there's whatever. So you want them to all be about the same type of fullness. 2 of them. This stuff is a little bit thicker than the other, not much. One of them. Okay, I'm gonna put these over here because I have a tendency to, drop stuff in them, whatever. So now let's just mix these up. And then I'll start gluing pieces together. I'll tell you one thing I don't love. Anytime I've ever had a 2-part epoxy type adhesives, one part's a different color than the other. These are pretty much the same. It's hard to tell when you got it mixed. So I'm just gonna mix it a lot. I guess that's all you can do. When I think it's mixed enough, I'll mix it some more.
Okay, so this is just starting to kind of firm up a little. So I'm going to stop right there. I don't want to get halfway through this or get it not quite positioned and have it harden. I'm going to stop. I'll mix up another batch for these last two big long joints. These are the two big pieces on top. And we'll go from there. All right, little technical difficulty. I didn't get the last little bit of this. I forgot to, record. Anyways, it's all there. I took some boards and I clamped them to that backboard to just kind of hold everything in line. I don't know if you could see in the time lapse or not, but I kept checking this edge with a straight edge to make sure that I had them lined up right. Because there's enough stone loss that they don't completely lock in. But I've got them lined up good now. I can tell, especially the important part. Well, I mean, this edge was nice and straight all the way. But you can tell that the letters, I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, you can. They line up. What's left of them? A little bit here on that M, and there's down here. These letters are lined up really good. So that everything seems good. All the joints, probably won't show on the camera, but if you were to look down, when you feel all these joints, the faces are lined up really good. So I think we're good. I gotta walk away and stop monkeying around with it and let it harden right where it is. I went back and I added a little bit of epoxy in some of these bigger voids because I wasn't sure the pieces were actually gonna stick together. I think we're good now. So the next step is gonna be infill. Once I let that dry, good. I may get somebody to help me pick it up and maybe lay it on my saw table here so that gravity's working with me. I think that might be a smart move. But anyways, once I'm ready, I'll pull these clamps and these boards off. And then what I'm going to do is I'll mix, like I said earlier, I'll mix the epoxy. I'll mix some more epoxy with the marble sand. And I'll play around with the grit mixture until I kind of get it so it's the same feel as this surface here. Now, the new stuff is really white, and this probably will never be super white again, so it's certainly going to look like a repaired stone. I just want to make every effort to make it, as good as it can be. That's all. And really, I'll tell you, for me, the main reason for doing the infill is structural, because the infill is also more epoxy, and you push it in there good, so you have good contact with both stones on both sides of the joint. And it adds that much more strength, because this wouldn't last the way it is. I mean, look at some of the voids where the stone is missing. Now, whether a piece flaked off, I think that's the case on these big ones. There probably were slivers that were gone, But also, there's areas where it's just eroded. Like I said earlier, even acids in the soil will eat these edges and round them over. So that needs to be filled back in. And the best thing I can do is to fill it back in with epoxy and sand. And then you've got a much stronger joint, and you'll keep the water from getting in there. Water's the enemy with things like this, for sure. I mean, what did this stone in was flaws in the stone. I'm pretty sure that's true. In fact, you can see there's still these veins that run through the stone, and I think that's the chief problem, is it's just not a perfect slice of rock. It had some flaws. Water got into the flaws, and when it freezes, it just
propagates a crack along there, and honestly, there's a chance it's gonna happen again. I don't know. You don't really know, but you gotta try. See these cracks along here. Well, that may be the next break. You know, these guys here. There's not much I can do about it. When I'm doing the infill, I'll see how that goes, and if I have my head around it and I seem to have able to do a good job, I might try to fill some of these cracks because it'll keep the water out, like I say, and that's the enemy. But I got a feeling, I mean, some of these are in the letters. There's nothing I can do about that. Just gonna have to do what I can do, and it's gonna be a whole lot better than it was. And I don't know, another generation or two, maybe they'll have to pay for a new stone if they want to. It might just be too far gone. We're gonna do what we can do, and that's gonna be it. All right, so it's been several hours. This is cured. I took the clamps off it while it was still standing up, and it is in one piece. It's solid, but I just didn't quite dare to take it off the stretcher here yet, so I had my wife come help me. We picked it up and slid it onto the table here, so it never left the stretcher. But now it's laying down so that I can start to fill these cracks, and gravity will be working with me, not against me. So I'm gonna mix up some epoxy with some marble sand, and we're gonna see how this goes. You and me. Okay. So the process here is about the same. The can is still childproof and very hard to open. So the videos I've watched, oh look at, hey, if you're gonna do this, here's the place to learn how it's really done, okay? Atlas Preservation has a YouTube channel, and the owner of Atlas Preservation, he does a 48 state tour. Every year he travels to a cemetery in every state, if he can book them all. And he works on restorations, preservations, repairs, whatever. He's been doing this for his whole career, I believe, and he's done it all. So anyways, the videos that I've been watching to learn how to do this have been his. Plus I've done some other research just with the Googleizing machine. But really, he's got just tons and tons of good info, and you'll learn much more by watching him. But one thing I did learn from watching him was it takes a ton of this sand to get this stuff mixed up dry enough to where it's ready to do infill. You want it so it pretty much, you can pick it up like a ball, almost dryish. There's still plenty of adhesive in there to make everything stick together. So I'm going to mix up a batch here. I really don't know how much I'm going to end up with because I have no idea how much sand I'm going to use, but we're just going to dig in. I guess I'll do a good sized spoon of each. 5 or 6 spoons at least. And it's probably going to take, so it's going to end up being quite a bit. I think I'll add sand now because I'll still be mixing to mix the sand in, so you know it'll still be mixing the two parts together. I hate to wait too long and waste too much of this. The sand is not terribly expensive, but if you inquired with somebody to do repairs on a gravestone and you wondered why it was so darned expensive, I can tell you 2 things. 1, it's not easy, and 2, the materials are not cheap. I'll just take a clean spoon. I really don't know what kind of blend here. I think I want quite a bit of the coarse. I'll start with 2 and 1. I'm gonna go another 2-in-1 at least. Cover these. That's looking better. Yeah, that's pretty close, I'd say. Remind me to put gloves on before I do anything else. You know, but it's still plenty sticky. There's plenty of adhesive there that'll stick. Because it needs to, it can't be so dry that it just sort of sits next to the granite. It needs to be wet enough to adhere to it. I think we're good. Okay, gloves. Thank you. Alright, let's see what happens. So I got this plate, all I did was snip the side off it with a pair of scissors. But that's just going to allow me to kind of work this stuff right off. This is just a very small pointing trowel into the crack, just like a stonemason would use. So the idea is, get this over here and work this into that crack. And it's going to take me a bit, I'm sure, to get a feel for this, but that's okay. Started down here, away from letters and such, so that I could get a little practice before I get up there. Just want to make sure I work it in there. I don't want to leave air bubbles or anything. I want it to get pushed all the way down in as deep as it can go. And then I'll do the same from the back side after I flip it over. And that should have it sealed up and glued up pretty darned well, I would think. And I'm sure this is, you know, it's not going to be an invisible repair. There's no, I don't know if that's even possible with a stone like this. It's got so much staining and stuff, but if it is possible, it's not possible for me. Being the first one I've ever done, out of the question, but that's all right. It already looks better than it did when I dug it out of the dirt. Just put it in a spot and keep squishing it down in there, basically, until it doesn't. It's like masonry. When you're I don't know if you've ever pointed masonry, but if you repoint bricks, you start working it, it keeps kind of burping back at you, so to speak. There's little air voids that pop up, and that's just the air that you've trapped, and it's pushing it out. As you push more in, it pops the air out, burps it out. Really is pretty much a burp. And you just keep working it, and those burps, after a little bit, they stop coming, and then you know you've got it full. But that's the gist of it. You can see what I'm up to here. When all's said and done, I hope it'll be, like I said, it's not going to be invisible, but that doesn't look bad, you know? It comes close to matching this area that's not stained,
And like I said, I'm going to give this a really good scrubbing when we're done. And I'm hopeful some of the staining, at least, goes away. And that'll bring that to where it, you know, I don't want to, just anyways. In case I do find these missing little pieces, I don't want to have epoxy hardened in here and in the way. So I'm just going to fish out that little bit right there so that this is open. In case I do find it when I get there. I really don't think I'm going to, but that's what I'm doing. I mean, you can see it's a huge improvement. And it's a lot more epoxy that is engaged and you know, it's gluing, it's sticking. So it's a lot more strength. But I got to keep hustling before I don't have any idea how long I'm going to have before this hardens. Probably didn't use half of what I mixed. And I'll tell you, when it's starting to dry out, it's still workable. It doesn't get hardened, but what happens is it stops sticking to the marble. So it's not gonna work. It's not gonna hold it. I think I could still work it into cracks, okay, and get them filled in, but it won't be bonded to the marble. And I really need, in this case, it's very important that the infill actually be structural too, and it have a good bond to the edges. So I figured it best to stop right there. It's dinner time anyways. I'm gonna start again. Hopefully I can get to it tomorrow, get some time. The trick's gonna be small batches. Make real small batches here, like level spoons, you know, and then I think just use it up and make another small batch, because this is pretty wasteful. Like I said though, this is not hard. It's still workable. In fact, I worked it into those holes that are drilled even after it was like that, because I don't really need them to be structural. I just need to fill them so the water can't get in there. So I was able to work it in there good, and they look okay, but I'm afraid that it's not like good enough. So the edge isn't wetting. And it's not sticking. So, I think the right thing to do is we're gonna call it quits right there for today. I'll mix up some more small batches. I've got this bit, I got some here, and then this one big one across here, which has some pretty big voids in it. And I was tempted to put some of this stuff in there, but I don't want to make a weak spot. I want it to all be good and strong. So I've got just a little cleaning up to do here, and that's going to be it for tonight. Alright, side one is done. All the infill. Obviously, it's much whiter than, well, I mean, It's not really much whiter than the stone here, but it's much whiter than some of it. But this is what it is, you know. I tried to get some video of this last bit because it was the hardest part, was infilling where the words are. And the reason I couldn't get video is I had to do it almost in the dark. I had just what light came through the window, and that casts a shadow across the stone that made it actually a lot easier to see the letters. So that's a trick for you. If you're ever in a graveyard trying to read stones that are hard to read, some of these old ones are really hard. Of course, if it's broad daylight, you can't do it, but if you just take a flashlight and shine it up from the bottom, quite often that's a different shadow, and you'll be able to read stuff that you can't read. Let me just, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I think I can reach the light switch. Okay, that's lights on. You can't see, you can't read much. You can read the easy stuff, in memory of Mrs. Sarah, Lufkin, whatever. Okay, but you turn the light off, and then especially when I block the light from the window, all of a sudden, you can read a whole lot of that thing. And I've got, I guess, a ghost story for you. So I'm agonizing over what all these words are. Too soon, we're called to mourn. I knew that much. And then the next line was, with grief resign her to the tomb. But I was missing, and it was right where a break was. And this piece was real, this area right here was really hard. I could not figure it out. I tried rubbing on paper. I tried all different light angles. I even tried different Instagram filters and stuff to try to see if that word would appear, you know, different angles and all sorts of things. But I knew it was, too soon we're called to mourn. And I thought it was her, but I wasn't even positive of that, right? So I'm getting ready to finish this last bit of infill, which is now done. Now look at, I'm not a guy that believes in a lot of ghost story type stuff, but that, you know, I don't discount it either. Certainly there are things we can't explain, right? Well, here's one for you. I take one last look. I take my phone and I put the light down low here so the light was shining across the face of it. And I went back and I started at the beginning and I read, too soon, we're called to mourn. And inside my brain, it wasn't like somebody was in the room, but inside my head, a woman's voice said her death. And I looked at it and went, yeah, that is absolutely what it says, is her death. So you can make what you want of that. I think it's kind of neat, actually. But that's definitely what it says. Too soon we're called to mourn her death, with grief resign her to the tomb. So now I know. That was something that I really wished I could figure out, but I had kind of given up because I didn't think it was ever gonna be known by me, right? But you can see up here, I mean, if I block the shadow, she died in June 27, yeah, 1788. So you can see what I did with the infill. I made sure that I cut the 8s, and right here the crack went right across the center of the top circle in that 8. So I built that up and I cut it out, and then the 7, the top of the 1 I made sure it looked like a 1, and then the 7 I made sure it looks like a 7. Same thing with her husband's name. The crack went right through the P and the H and a little of the E. So I just made sure that it took a while, but I just made sure to have those scratched into the right shape, so that I'm hoping that when this stone is cleaned, and you know, maybe after it ages another 20 years and things kind of even out, I'm hoping that'll just look normal, you know. Over here, the misses, I just made sure the bottoms of these letters were all there, you know, like the bottom of that M, that's all infill. So I just I made it look just like the, I had one to go by here, so I tried to make it look just like the M and Mr. And the fancy beginning here is on this missing piece, but I did, you can still see it a little, so it doesn't really show, but I did put a little curve down here on the bottom, which is right where it should be, this beginning of this thing. And if, like I said, if I find this piece on site, I'm gonna epoxy it in there, and then I'll set the stone, and then I can infill that. But anyway, I just thought it's an interesting story. You can take it for what it is. It may certainly have been all just my imagination or whatever, but just as clear as anything, a woman said, her death, DEATH, period. And that's it. That's what it says. So there it is. First side's done. Now I just gotta wait till that gets good and hard, probably maybe tonight. Flip the thing over, infill the back side. I was thinking as I infilled the front side, how smart it might have been for me to practice on the back first, but not super smart. So I'll do the back, and that should be the real easy side. There's no letters to worry about at all. Just get it filled in so it can't take any water on, and I think the stone will be done, at least for the part I can do here at home. Okay, so I guess it's time. I'm gonna see how clean this will get, how white it'll be. I'm hoping it'll come somewhere near matching the infill, which is pretty white. I really don't know. We're about to find out. Well, it lightened up quite a bit, but unfortunately that's as good as it's gonna get. Now that D2 cleaner, this is what it's made for. What it does is it goes into the pores of the stone and it continues to kill. Some of that, at least, is biological stuff. It's growth, it's mold or mildew or whatever, and it's into the pores of the stone. That stuff will continue to kill it, and the rain will flush it out of the pores, and it will whiten. I mean, if you look online, you'll see where they have stones that they wash them and they're still getting whiter for a couple of years afterwards. So there's a pretty good chance it's going to get much better, but it ain't going to be today. In the, the infill is, still sticks out kind of like a sore thumb, which I was hoping would be less, but it is what it is. And it's all one piece, which is an improvement. You can actually read it better now. I kind of was afraid when I cleaned out the letters. I almost didn't take the small brush to the letters because the dirt in them made it easier to read, but it's still pretty good. I mean, you can definitely read it all, but the epitaph's pretty hard still. Nobody's gonna get the her death unless Granny speaks to them too. But I like it. It's good. It's cared for now. Just about ready to get reinstalled. You'll see that I decided to infill that one small piece. The chances of me finding that little corner are almost none, but this chunk up here is too big, especially because it gets bigger on the back side. That's too big to build with epoxy. So I'm still hoping maybe that piece will be there and I can clean it and epoxy it on and then set the stone. Well, just when I thought I was done, I'm not done. Let me show you what we're up to. One last step here in the process. Now, the way these stones work is this tab, it's cut in here a little bit. So this tab fits down into a base that's in the ground, and you mortar it in. So this right here is all that holds this whole stone up, So you got wind blowing against it, you got people leaning against it, you got lawnmowers bumping into it, whatever. That's all that holds it. And this piece was broken off right here. So really this whole from here down is relying only on my epoxy repair to hold it. And that's the foundation that holds the whole stone. And the more I looked at it, oh, hello. Wow. Aggressive dog fighting. Anyway, the more I look at it, and I'm sure that a real preservationist probably would say this is not the right thing to do. You should never cut it. I've got it repaired. I should probably put it up. But I don't know. To me, it just seems like relying on this glued on piece is kind of dumb. Knowing that that's all that's going to be into the slot on one side. So what I'm going to do, my friend Ryan let me borrow a grinder with a diamond cutoff wheel. I'm going to slice this thing right off, right where I have it marked. I'm going to take about 2 inches off the bottom of it, and then I'm going to trim up here and remake these notches, up where they're supposed to be. So this will fit into the base at the cemetery, and it'll be all stone. There won't be a repair down inside trying to hold this stone up. I hope it's not the wrong thing to do.
that was pretty painless, really. Now I've got, you know, just rock all the way along here, and these are the right size again that it should fit into the base when we get there, and I think it's going to be a lot better job, you know, when all's said and done. And all we lost was 2 inches of height. I mean, this stone's been laying in the ground for 100 years, I'm guessing. Hopefully this is the fix that holds up. I mean, through the project here, I've basically found evidence of 3 other repairs where they drilled and bolted it, and then I found 2 different types of mortar used to try to patch seams back together. So it's been a troubled stone its whole life, pretty much, I would guess. It was in 10 pieces when I got it, and now it's in 1. I'm hoping when I get there to patch that corner, but if I can't, I'm okay with that. My son's gonna go with me, and we're gonna go set this thing Saturday. We got unseasonably warm weather here, so we're gonna take advantage of it and get this thing mortared into the base and be done with this thing. And then I can just you know, take a drive and check on it once in a while and see if it's still standing. Something for me to do when I'm old, you know. There. Doesn't that look better? First of all, let me apologize for this video going much longer than I like them to be, but there's kind of a lot to this. I probably should have broke it up maybe into a couple, but there it is. If it was too boring, I apologize. Tune in next time when we return this thing to its home in New Hampshire and hopefully get out of there without being incarcerated. Taking my son, so my wife actually likes him, so maybe she'll cough up the bail money if he's in the pokey with me. This is weird. I do weird things. Sorry. Anyway, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch me as I ramble on. Thank you for supporting the channel. I hope that if you haven't done so, please go down there and click subscribe. It's very important. I need 1,000 subscribers. That's the goal right now. If you know anybody that would be interested in any of the nonsense that I do on my channel, please tell them to watch and to subscribe. My channel is kind of all over the place, I know. It's really hard to explain to people what it's about because it's not really about anything. Kind of like the Seinfeld of YouTube. It's the channel about nothing. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.